The ocean had no color. At night, during a storm in the North Atlantic, the water becomes blacker than oil, thicker than blood. It is not an element. It is a predator waiting patiently under the keel. Captain Elias Thorne stood on the bridge of the destroyer Vanguard, his white-knuckle fingers gripping the railing. The glass of the portholes trembled with the impact of the waves, as if something gigantic was trying to force its way inside. Thorne had not slept for 3 days. His eyes, sunken and red, stared into the darkness, where the radar drew ghostly shadows. "Contact, sir." The voice of the sounder trembled, breaking through the roar of the wind. "Bearing 270. Weak. Disappearing." Thorne turned sharply. He had been waiting for this. He had been hunting the U-boat Grey Wolf for 2 weeks. This submarine had sunk 2 tankers in a convoy that Thorne had sworn to protect. This was no longer a war. This was a personal vendetta. "It's him," the captain whispered. "He's surfacing to recharge his batteries. He thinks the storm will hide him." The chief mate, Lieutenant Miller, glanced uncertainly at the instruments. "Captain, the sea is an 8. The Vanguard's hull is cracking at the seams. We're barely keeping afloat. If we turn our sides toward the wave, we might capsize. Besides, the signal, it's strange. It could just be an echo from the bottom." Thorne looked at Miller with a look that held nothing human, only cold calculation and the madness of fatigue. "This isn't the bottom, Lieutenant. This is the Wolf. He's laughing at us. Left helm. Course 270. Full ahead." "Sir, the engines are overheating." The chief engineer's voice broke in over the intercom, distorted by static. "If we go full steam ahead against that wave, the boilers won't hold the pressure. We'll lose steam." "I said full steam ahead." Thorne roared over the roar of thunder. "That's an order. We'll catch up with him before dawn, or I'll personally shoot every coward on this ship." The crew froze. In the cramped quarters that smelled of sweat, fuel oil, and fear, the men exchanged glances. They knew their captain as a tough but fair commander. But today something else burned in his eyes. He saw not the ship, not the men, but only his goal, his obsession. The destroyer shuddered as the propellers foamed, biting into the water. The Vanguard turned, exposing its vulnerable side to the giant waves. The first impact was like hitting a concrete wall. The metal crunched, pitifully, piercingly. Somewhere deep inside the ship there was a sound like a gunshot. One of the skins burst. Thorne did not move. He looked through the binoculars, although all he could see was a wall of water and rain. "Hurry up," he whispered. "You won't get away." The engine room was hell. The men, naked to the waist, were suffocating from the heat. The steam pipes vibrated, ready to explode. Chief Engineer Koval crossed himself, looking at the pressure gauges, the needles of which had entered the red zone. "He'll kill us," shouted the stoker, throwing coal into the furnace. "He'll drown us all for the ghost." On the bridge, Miller approached the captain again. "Sir, the acoustic reports, the signal has disappeared. It was a mistake. It was a school of fish or a thermal layer. There's no one there. Please, let's get back on course. The nose is sinking in the water." Thorne pushed the lieutenant away. "He's sunk. Drop depth charges. Everything we have." "At that speed?" Miller was horrified. "We'll blow up our own stern." But Thorne himself was already rushing to the telegraph. He had lost touch with reality. In his head, it was not the ocean that was roaring, but the laughter of the German captain. The ship was flying into the abyss. Another wave, as high as a 3-story building, covered the tank. The Vanguard buried its nose in the water and did not have time to rise. A huge mass of water hit the superstructure. The glass on the bridge shattered into thousands of shards. Ice, water, and wind rushed in, sweeping away charts, instruments, and people. But the most terrible thing happened below. The overloaded boilers, unable to withstand the sharp impact and pressure drop, burst. The explosion was deafening, gut-wrenching. It tore the destroyer apart from the inside, like a paper toy. The deck beneath Thorne's feet shook. The lights went out instantly. The screams of 100 people merged into one sound that drowned out even the storm. The ship broke in half. Thorne was thrown against the bulkhead. Blood filled his eyes. He tried to get up, but his leg was broken. All around, in the red light of the emergency lights, he saw chaos. Lieutenant Miller lay motionless, pierced by a shard of glass. The radio operator, a mere boy, tried in vain to send an SOS to nowhere, gasping for air with his mouth like a fish. The captain crawled to the broken porthole. The Vanguard was dying. The stern had already gone under, dragging the still spinning propellers with it. The nose rose vertically, as if in a final prayer. And then, in a flash of lightning, Thorne saw what he had killed his crew for. 200 meters away, on the crest of the wave, a piece of wreckage swayed. Just a piece of wood, debris from some other, long-sunken ship. It was it that was casting a false shadow on the radar. It was it that was thumping against the waves, imitating the sound of propellers. There was no submarine there. There was only emptiness. Thorne no longer felt pain. The bone-chilling cold suddenly seemed merciful to him. He realized what he had done. He was not a warrior. He had become an executioner. The water filled the bridge. It was icy, but to Thorne it was burning. He could hear the ship groaning, gasping for air. He could hear his men screaming behind the thin bulkheads, locked in compartments, doomed to die in the dark. And every scream was a sentence to him. Captain Elias Thorne made no attempt to escape. He pulled himself up to the wheel, which no longer controlled anything, and wrapped his arms around it. Course. He croaked as the black water closed over his head. Course. To hell. The ocean swallowed the Vanguard in a matter of minutes. The storm continued to roar, indifferent to the tragedy. Nothing remained on the surface. No lifeboats, no wreckage. Only the black water that hid the mistake of one and the lives of 100. The tragedy was over. Eternal silence had begun. Akian Zabraf, Vanguard. Dak samo baiduja. Yak, soten shuch kerbolf dervingi. Nichtonyadznatsa, shustalasa da noch naspraft. Vavtsainich stach na bisud. Znig bis stipode chas vikana biavovazavan. Ale mis nama pravdo. Najstrashenshi vorak nizavzdi havatsav bliben. Not ven stoth na kapdanska mostku. Devitsa, udzerkala,